The second reason is to pursue your higher purpose in life, okay? I want you to look at this. How many of you just feel like you're in the moment of pleasure, right? You're just like looking for that next high. Oh, I did this, that was great, and then you kind of like drop, right? And then you look for something else to make you feel good, and then you kind of drop, right? So you're in the pleasure zone. What happens after that is then you become a little bit more passionate about life, okay? And the next step after that is when you connect to your higher purpose. This is the true happiness, right? When you are doing what you were meant to do, right? So doing doTERRA gives you that opportunity that you can pursue your higher purpose in life. I'm going to speed through some of this. So what does it look like then, right? So let's paint this picture. You have people come over, you go, teach a class, got a handful of them that end up enrolling, and maybe one of them want to commit, and you're like, sweet, I'm a rock star, just commit the next builder. Are they committed? No. When does the commitment happen? Later. When? In the trenches. All these different things. It happens when action happens, okay? So just because someone says they're going to build and they want to do that, that doesn't mean they're going to build, right? Because how many of you heard something like this? Oh, no, I'm going to do this. But you see, it's my last summer with my daughter, and she's going to college in the fall. So I'm doing this, okay? But I'm going to start my class in the fall, right? How many of you heard something like that, right? Or, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to start doTERRA, but I'm just going to finish building my home and taking care of that first, right? Or I'm going to have a baby first, right? So there's all these things that come up, right? So have they really made the decision to start doTERRA? No. You make the decision when action follows. When you say, I'm doing this, and then it's done. You do it, right? So I made the decision, I'm going to start doTERRA in February. But when was my first class? Not till May, because I had to wait for a tax return. But in that meantime, there was action happening, okay? So what happens is we get so emotionally invested, and then we get hurt because someone's like, well, they said they were going to build, and now they're not. And we're like so devastated over it. You're mad that a builder quit when they never even started. You know how insane that is? It's like you just need to help them start. So this is what it looks like. You start getting the classes scheduled now. Not 5 months from now, not 6 months from now. You make things happen now, right? Make sure that you start living the 631. I'm going to go through some of this quickly, sorry. So one of the leaders on my team, I remember this was a really cool experience, Julianne Alice, phenomenal individual. So she was the first builder that we ever committed onto my team. And I'll never forget, when you're brand new, do we have anyone that's enrolled less than 30 days in here? No one? Oh, one. Oh, that's so cool. Okay. All right. So tell me if I'm wrong here. So remember when you're brand new and you're just totally stoked and filled with all this excitement and you have no clue what you're getting into, right? And everyone's like, just wait. It's coming. Just wait, right? And you're so excited. It's a really exciting time, right? Totally is, okay? So what happens is Julianne comes to the class, and then she comes to another class, and she finally enrolls. I think it took a month for her to finally enroll. And this whole time, I'm like, I got my builder, right? I'm doing good. I got my builder, right? And then I have Seth, who's like, yeah, Courtney, let's talk about this for a minute here. Because he understood where she was at. Because Julianne was 8 months pregnant. 8 months pregnant. And she's like, yeah, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to wait till after I have the baby, right? I'm just going to wait. And I'm like, I'm cool with that. I am down with that. How many of you would have been down with that? I had no idea what I was doing. And then Seth's like, yeah, let's talk about this. So we had a conversation with Julianne, and he's like, Julianne, you could consider starting now, and in the process of having the baby, Courtney and I can go build your team for you. Who's going to say no to that? Right? So the problem is we're not bold enough in our invitations to people. You can love them where they're at, but you have to make sure that you guide them properly instead of just sitting back and going, okay, it's their decision, I'll let them do that. Well, why don't you paint the whole picture for them so they can make a proper decision? Do you get that? So in that meantime, while she was having her baby and took, I don't know, it wasn't full 6 weeks. Do you remember how long?
I was on the phone probably the week after.
The week after. Hardcore. Yeah, and I remember I'd get a phone call from her, and she'd be like, hey, so can you go to Boise, which is 2 hours from where we lived? I have another class up there. Can you go do that class for me? And she was just calling people and booking all these classes, and me and Seth were like going all these places. And I think there was about 3 or 4 builders that were committed before she came back. Like, how cool would that be, right? Okay? So it's important to understand that. Successful people make decisions quickly, and they change their minds slowly. Unsuccessful people change their minds often and never make a decision. And that's what we see time and time again in doTERRA, and we get so frustrated with our builders because they haven't made the decision, all right? So help them do that. All right, what we're going to do now is I want you to think about that moment when you made the decision to start doTERRA, okay? And I'm going to give you 2 minutes. We're going to turn on some music, and I want you to journal about it. Now, the purpose of this, if you don't know that moment, if you don't know why you started, guess what? You're going to have a difficult time trying to get someone else to make that decision too. Does that make sense? You have to know this. Now, some of you might be going, I think I've just started. Maybe I haven't. Okay, if you have to think about it, you haven't started. Okay? So I'm going to give you 2 minutes right now, and I want you to think about that. When did I make that decision? What did it look like? What did it feel like? All right, make sure and remember that moment and take time later tonight to finish these journal assignments that we're going to be going through, all right? Now, the other reason why that's important to know that is because now things are about to get hard, right? So you made the decision to start, and now you're excited, you're going along, and maybe you ran out of contacts. Anyone ever experienced that? Like, I was excited, but now I don't know anyone else to talk to, right? Okay, so these are things that can come up. Oh, what happened to my slide? So sad. These are things that can come up that reasons why we give ourselves that it could be hard to build doTERRA, right? So we have to talk to people. How many of you like that? You have to get out of your comfort zone, go talk to people. What about the mommy guilt, right? That's hard, right? How many of us feel bad when we're leaving our home? Can I tell you one thing on the mommy guilt on any of this real quick, okay? You know what the secret to all of this is? When you're juggling all of these roles and you're feeling all these responsibilities, you never drop the ball more than twice in that same area. Does that make sense? So if I'm going like crazy with doTERRA 2 days in a row, I'm not going to do that on a third day, right? I'm going to spend more time with my kids that day. Doesn't mean I'm not doing doTERRA, right? If I have 2 days in a row when I'm with my kids, it's like, all right, you know what? I need to recheck and look at some other things I need to be doing. So I never drop the ball more than 2 times in a row. That's how I'm able to create the harmony and juggle all of my different hats in life. It's one of the greatest things I ever learned through this process, because that mommy guilt will stop you in a heartbeat, right? What's hard? Becoming the best version of yourself, right? Teaching class after class after class, all the different sacrifices, finding people, all of that's hard, right? But here's what I'll tell you. Once you make that decision to keep going, even when you're faced with the difficulties, you only have to make it once. Okay? So I remember the day that I made the decision to keep going. It was about 2 months into my journey. I felt like I had contacted everyone that I knew, the whole 25 people. That's how big my list was. Thank you. I felt like I had a 1, 2, and 3-year-old. On top of it, I was a foster mom of a 3 and 5-year-old. So now I had 5 kids, 5 and under. Extra fun. And then I was still sewing, right? I mean, I was doing all this stuff, and I thought, I just can't do this anymore. And I started canceling classes. I stopped responding to text messages and phone calls from Seth, right? I stopped getting on team calls. I stopped showing up because it was hard. Life was hard. Was doTERRA hard? No, life was hard, right? So that made doTERRA feel hard. How can I throw one more thing on my plate, right? So what happened is I ended up getting an email from Seth one day, and he said, Courtney, because that's the only way he could communicate with me because I wasn't responding. He said, I'm going to be diamond, which means I have to help a minimum of 4 people reach the rank of silver or above. And I just need to know if you want to be one of them. Now, when I read that, my heart sank because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm letting him down. And I'm letting my kids down. And I'm letting me down. That moment when I decided to start, see, I lost that excitement. And I had to go back and remind myself of why I was doing this. And so I called him, and I was like, dude, that's how we talk to each other. It's like, I'm so sorry. here's what's going on. And he was bold enough again to know where I was at in this process and realize that I was now faced with decision number 2, which is deciding to keep going even when it's hard. And he had the conversation with me. And he said, you know, I love what you're doing with foster care. I love that you want to adopt more kids. I love that you want to help them. But what if you could help more kids? And he helped paint this picture for me. What if we put foster care on the shelf for a time being and gave doTERRA all that you had? So instead of helping 1 or 2 kids here and there, you could bless the lives of thousands and thousands of kids. How many of you are willing to be that bold when you're talking to your leaders when they're struggling? Or does it look more like, oh yeah? Well, my day was like this too. And you compare your struggles with each other, right? Okay, but he knew where I was at, so recognize where your leaders are at. And how can you help them keep going? 1, you have to make that decision yourself, okay? Now I'll tell you this too. Once you make that decision, it doesn't mean it's smooth sailing after that, right? It doesn't. In fact, you'll be faced with difficult times, time and time and time again. The difference is you're going to know how to show up because you made the decision to keep going. So 4 months after that decision that I made, number 2, to keep going, I was faced again with another very difficult time in my life. When my husband at the time came to me and said, I don't know I'm married to you anymore, and I don't know that I want the kids anymore, and I just want to stay here and help you go diamond, just support you and watching the kids while you go do this, so that you can take care of you and the boys, and I can go live this other life. I'll never forget that day. Because what happened immediately after that is I looked at my calendar and I saw I was booked solid of classes. And there was never a thought of me quitting because I made the decision to keep coming and to keep going. But I picked up the phone and I called Seth. And he's like, oh my gosh, Courtney, what's wrong? And he heard it in my voice. I said, I'm just struggling. I've got some classes tonight and I just need a day or 2 to just emotionally prepare myself. He had just landed, I think, from Australia and been away from his family, I can't remember for how many days. He didn't even make it back home. And he called his wife up. He says, we got to go help Courtney. And he drove another 3 hours straight to the class. I went and started it. He said, can you just start it and I'll be there to finish it. And I started it, got 30 minutes into it before he got there, and then I left. Hard times are going to come. But I know how I'm going to show up. Do you? Do you know how you're going to show up when it gets hard? Have you made that decision? Only have to make it once. Eventually, that marriage did come to an end. That's okay. I'm good. And then I was faced with a new identity. I'm like, oh my gosh, now how do I do this all alone with these 3 boys? How do I do doTERRA, right? So all of those things are hard, but it doesn't change how I show up. It's hard. It's hard to leave your kids at night. It's hard when you're locked behind 3 or 4 doors, right? On calls, mentoring calls, and you're trying to talk to people, right? You're just like trying to mute it and not have them hear your kids screaming in the background, right? It's hard when you don't have family support. It's hard when you feel like you've committed a builder and then they quit on you and you feel like you're alone, right? All those times are hard, okay? That's fine, but harder than what? Harder than what? What's the alternative, people? What is the alternative? For me, the alternative was going back to that life. That was not an option. Do you feel that way? Failure was not an option, period. So if I have to compare where I was at to where I wanted to be, doTERRA is not hard at all. At all. What about people that want to go to school, right? I have a leader on my team that I saw her make this decision. She was accepted into the RN program. And that's a lot of work to even get into that far, right? Can we all agree on that? And you know that she never went? She decided to build her business instead because she knew that doing that, going to school for those many years, all of the time, all the sacrifices, all of the money commitment, everything that went into that still wouldn't give her and her family what they really wanted at the end. I've seen someone walk away from that. I admire her still to this day for that. What's hard? Some of you might have jobs that are very physically demanding on your bodies, right? Okay? That's what's hard. What's hard to me? None of this. None of that was hard. What was hard for me was waking up every single day of my life hating that person I saw in the mirror. What's hard for me was having my kids cry, because they're going to cry one way or the other. I'd rather have them cry that I'm on the phone trying to teach someone how to change their story, and in the process be that example for my children how to change their story, than to have them cry because we can't go anywhere or do anything or buy anything because we're broke. What's hard is not teaching my children how to dream. You with me? So what does it look like then to keep going when you made that decision, even though it's hard? It looks a lot of the same. It's a lot of the same. Can anyone tell me the one thing that separates this from the first decision? At this point, was that?
Action.
Passion? Action. Well, action happens the first time too. The difference is now that we are aware that we have not been giving doTERRA the time, the attention, and the respect that it deserves. That's the difference. See, in the beginning, we're still going, yeah, this is still kind of a hobby thing, right? I'm going to just try this out. I'm starting, but I'm going to try this out, right? You guys do that? You see people that do that? Okay? Now, when things get hard and you make that second decision, that's the difference. You understand now you're going to give it all the respect it deserves to reach your goals. You with me? So instead of scheduling your life with all of these things and then filling in doTERRA in the gaps, you schedule pretty much, for me, God, family, doTERRA. And then any leftover time goes to any other areas of life. Okay? That's how it looks for me. That's what happened when I made that decision. Okay? All right. Albert Einstein said, in the middle of every difficulty lies opportunities. I think about this often. It's one of my favorite quotes. And when I'm faced with those difficult times, I look at this and I go, what's the opportunity here? What do I get to learn from this experience? And instead of walking away and not learning and growing, I choose to look at it as an opportunity, right? And I changed my excuses to my reasons of why I'm continuing to do doTERRA. All right? We're going to skip the journaling right now because we're short on time. Are you guys cool with that? But I'm giving you homework right now. Okay? For 2 minutes tonight, I want you to journal about your decision number 2. Have you decided to keep going when it was hard? Okay? With that, I want you to journal about what support you need to put in place in your life to help you through that. Does everyone have that so I can move on? No? Okay. So what decision, journal about the day you made that decision, so your moment of when you made that decision to keep going, and then what support you need in your life to keep going, right?